Because I live in Minnesota. We have another speaker here, Jess Sundin, who I've known for a long time in the anti-war movement in Minnesota. And she is particularly qualified to be here because her house was raided by the FBI. Because she's an anti-war activist and she supports the Palestinian movement and she's campaigned for the organizations that oppose U.S. militarism and occupation in Colombia. So she's been defined as being engaged in material support for terrorism. But in Minnesota, this is something that's been going on for 10 years in the Somali community. First, they closed all the Hawalas in 2001. Not one prosecution from closing all of the Hawalas. Not one. Was there an apology? Was there an announcement that there were no crimes found from closing all the Hawalas? No.
What's a Hawala?
Hawala is a money transfer service that is worked out in the Muslim community. They transfer money overseas. Oh, sorry. It's a money transfer system in the Muslim world.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? And the idea was that these money transfer services were somehow supporting terrorism around the world. So they closed them all, searched people's homes, went through all of this and demonized the Somali community. Not one criminal charge. Not one apology, not one public admission they found nothing. Then in 2006, Ethiopia invaded Somalia. Ethiopia, a Christian country, U.S. Air Force supported the invasion and has been openly supporting Ethiopia since that time. Somali guys from around the world went back to fight for the homeland the way that Irish guys would if Britain invaded Ireland again, or if Egypt had invaded Israel. Where would all the young Israeli guys be, young Jewish guys be? That's what happened in Minnesota. And since 2006, Minnesota has been the site of the largest and most expensive anti-terrorism investigation in history. Did you know that? In the Midwest, a state of 5 million people that has 100,000 Somalis is the center of international jihad according to the FBI and the Justice Department, on the record. And has been for the last 6 years. And the result of the largest and most expensive investigation in history has been roughly 15 pleas of guilty. Half of them have been material support for terrorism. My body was in Somalia. My body is physical. It's material. The other half were, I knew those guys were going to Somalia, but I didn't tell you. So I lied to a federal official. Last summer, the law changed again. The international, the Humanitarian Law Project versus Holder case was decided by the Supreme Court. Elena Kagan, who's now in the Supreme Court, was asked the question, do you mean that if a lawyer is representing an organization that's been put on the forbidden list by the Secretary of State, and that lawyer argues in front of the United Nations on behalf of this organization that they want the help of the United Nations in doing legal things and becoming nonviolent, that would be material support for terrorism according to the Obama administration? Elena Kagan said, yes. What has happened is just before Jess Sundin's house and the other Minnesota activists were raided, the Supreme Court changed the law to eliminate the requirement that activists have any intention of supporting illegal acts of organizations that the Secretary of State has deemed illegal to associate with. At the same time, their houses were raided in the Somali community. The 2 women that I've been advising who collect old clothes and send them to the refugee camps in Kenya, because that's their zakat, they were indicted for material support for terrorism. There's no defense. The old clothes are material. They were sending him to a refugee camp. At that refugee camp, it could be that members of Al-Shabaab will get to wear the Mickey Mouse t-shirts and the old... There's no defense. And if you send a Mickey Mouse t-shirt that can get in the hands of the terrorists, you'll go to prison too. And the point is, up until now, and up until the house of the activists were searched and the houses of the activists in Chicago were searched, those of us who were not Muslim thought that this was a Muslim issue. In Minnesota, we thought it was a Somali issue. No, what's happened is the laws of the United States have changed in ways that are too numerous to detail here. The notion now is that there is such a threat to the United States' security, domestically and internationally, that the security of the United States is under such threat that it's necessary to send CIA agents into Pakistan, calling them consular officials, so that they have immunity when they kill Pakistanis on the street. We're under such threat that it's perfectly okay for the FBI to organize crimes in Portland, Oregon, and then to get unwilling and unknowing young men to get involved with an FBI crime, and then the FBI is successful in discovering their own crime. And it's perfectly okay to send people to observe meetings like this, because there is a federal agent taking notes on what's going on here today. Because, you see, terrorism is everywhere. And if you talk to the public at large, the notion is that we are under such threat internationally and domestically that the gloves have had to come off, and national security requires doing anything that's necessary to protect this, the most powerful nation the world has ever seen, by reducing the civil liberties that this nation has had, that's made it possible for democracy to get this far. I would suggest to you that we're entering a period in our history in which the future will be determined by political activism, like what we're seeing in Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio. And it's not going to be a struggle just to defend the civil liberties of Muslim people, but Muslim people and the struggle of Muslim people and the targeting of Muslim people shows the rest of us what's in store for the rest of us. Because, as Frederick Douglass has said, and those of you who have heard me speak before know that I repeat this, because he was right in the 1760s when he said this, and he is right today. Power concedes nothing without demand. It doesn't in Wisconsin, it doesn't in Indiana, it doesn't in Ohio, it doesn't in Washington, D.C., it doesn't in Tampa, it doesn't in Cairo, it doesn't in Libya. It never has, and it never will. And those who want justice and freedom without struggle are those who want the crops to grow without the rain.